The question that I asked the cards is, what do we need to know about boundaries? And I've already pulled some cards, and then I've been sitting here with them for a few minutes before turning the camera on. What I've been receiving since yesterday's message is like this incomplete notion of boundaries being this paradox of necessity that eventually collapses on itself and is no longer necessary, because really what we're doing with boundaries is binding ourselves into a container so that something cannot affect us. We're not necessarily keeping something away from us in the most healthy ways. When we're calling ourselves having healthy boundaries, there's an ebb and a flow to this, because each set of circumstances and situations are different, and they each require a different set of discernment and offer a new perspective. So all of our boundaries are in a constant state of being restructured and being reorganized and understood from another paradigm, from another perspective, from another set of belief systems. So right now I feel like what I am experiencing energetically is an understanding that what we tend to do as humans is set up a boundary for something that we are claiming is bad, or at the very least claiming is not for us. And we set up some sort of structure energetically to keep something out. But what we're doing is creating boundaries that keep us in, and it keeps energies that we may also want to interact with out. It's more fear-based, and there's different levels to that, but fear-based in a way of saying, if I don't keep a barrier up towards these things that I don't approve of, I'm going to allow them to affect me, because on some level I don't feel strong enough or validated enough to truly say no. I don't trust myself to say no if some sort of opportunity comes my way, or I don't trust that my alignment is strong enough to keep something negative out of my field. So now I'm creating these boundaries, and I'm using my mental capacities to decide what is or is not allowed in my life. And when we do that, we also are creating a boundary that's keeping out the equal opposite, I think, of whatever those negative things are. So we're kind of boxing ourselves in, we're shutting doors, and we're binding ourselves to a place that feels safe and comfortable, which I think is necessary, and I think it's healthy to a certain degree. But I think that particularly in the spiritual communities, we can use that word, those words, healthy boundaries, in a way that's really just keeping us in our little safety container, where we don't have to look at what it is that we're afraid of interacting with. So I believe that right now is a time of taking a look at what boundaries we have set up, and looking at what levels of fear we might be creating those boundaries from, and using our discernment to decide if some of those boundaries are ready to be collapsed, because we are now strong enough and we trust ourselves enough, and we have created a vibration that we are steady enough in to know that we're not a match for the things that we may have created boundaries to keep out before. So we no longer actually need the boundary because we're not going to align with those things. And if they are presented to us, we trust our ability to say no to them in a way that maybe we did not trust ourselves to say no to them before. And that means types of relationships, types of people that we want in our lives, types of circumstances in relationships. It's a different kind of discerning, as opposed to saying, I don't allow people to treat me a certain way, so I don't allow certain people in my life. We're saying within, I know that I'm not a match for people treating me a certain way, and therefore I'm not a match to certain types of people in my life, so I don't need a wall that's keeping them out. I have shifted my vibration so that there is no alignment with those people, places, or things. And now I know that if I've shifted my vibration, this wall that I may have built a long time ago is no longer necessary, and I can collapse that, and I can collapse those timelines, because as long as those walls are currently standing, we're holding those timelines open, and we're holding those bridges and gateways open as well, because there's some sort of fear that those walls were created from, even if the fear is just a mild uncertainty or a strong representation of the way that we're saying no to something, because universally there is no actual saying no to anything. If we're noticing it and we're pushing against it, then we're still vibrationally attached to it. So we're letting go of those attachments by letting go of those barriers and those binding boundaries that we have created for our own safety. So as we're collapsing those boundaries, those walls, those security systems, and those timelines and those realities, we're moving forward with what is serving us, and those things that are not serving us, those things that our vibration is not a match to anymore, are being released. Anything else? So this is really about coming into a balance and healing the parts of ourselves that did not feel empowered and worthy of whatever our set of circumstances has been, and moving into that divine union within, where we know our worth and we know our own truths, and we have completed cycles that contain programs that are no longer necessary for our paths. So let's just take a couple of minutes here to take a deep breath and center yourself and allow whatever boundaries and programs you're ready to release. You don't have to know what those are consciously. If you feel like you need to sit with the thought processes for seeing these things, then do that as well after this. But right now, we could just release some of those boundaries and collapse some of those timelines. So you can do this by allowing the energy, calling in whatever guides or beings that you work with, and asking them to assist you with collapsing timelines and boundaries that are no longer necessary for your highest good. And then allowing that energy to come in through your third eye and shift down into the rest of your chakras. We might have a lot of boundaries from childhood that we set up to keep ourselves safe that we no longer need. Now we're capable of being safe on our own, and maybe we don't know what all those boundaries are, but we can allow our guides to go in and just release those from our systems. I can feel that energy move through my third eye all the way down into my root chakra. So I'm just going to release anything that's no longer serving me that might be related to keeping me safe, that's no longer necessary for my highest good. And then I'm going to let that energy come up and go out. So if you're not aware, every change is a complete change. So from the version of you that you were a minute and a half ago to the version of you that you are now is a completely different person. That means not only that you have a new future, but you also have a new past. That could probably, I can make a whole video about that. But every time we change something, we change not only who we are now and who we're going to be, but we change who we have been, because the person who is the vibrational frequency that I am now is not a match to the past of the person who was the vibrational frequency that I was a minute and a half ago. So allowing those perceptions about our past to shift as we're making changes like this is beneficial and necessary for the change to be as complete as it's capable of being. And that means not holding on to old stories that are no longer serving us, not trying to remember things that are no longer coming up naturally for us to be aware of, and not being concerned when we start thinking about our childhood and there are memories that we can no longer access. No longer being able to access those memories means that we're no longer a vibrational match for them, which means that we are now a person who did not experience those moments in the quantum time-space continuum, and we don't need them anymore. Where's my time at? Can't see the screen. Okay. So a shift like that can allow our energy to really sort of propel forward in a new way quickly. And if you can accept and allow that you have changed, that there was a larger shift than maybe your mind might think there was, you can allow something potentially more drastic to unfold in your immediate awareness, and your reality to take a bigger shift than maybe what you've been expecting. I'm going to turn this off because I'm almost at 15 minutes, but I would say sit with that energy for a little while if you're called to it, and allow it to continue moving through you, claiming whatever it is that you're wanting to claim and releasing whatever it is that you're wanting to release, if you want to add some conscious understanding to that.